The rain fell in slow, delicate streams against the cafe window, tracing long silver lines that blurred the glow of streetlights outside. Inside, the low hum of chatter and the soft hiss of the espresso machine created a world that felt too calm for what was about to happen. Amelia sat at the corner table, a half-drunk cappuccino growing cold in front of her. She had dressed carefully tonight, her favorite navy coat, her hair loosely tied, just enough lipstick to feel confident. She thought it might be the night Nathan would talk about the future, maybe even mention moving in together. Instead, he had started with a sigh. "Amelia, you know I like you. You're amazing, smart, responsible, elegant, but hung between them like smoke." And then he said it. He said she was past her expiry date. The words didn't make sense at first, not in the quiet hum of the cafe or in the warmth of the soft light above their table. Amelia blinked at him, certain she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" Nathan didn't even flinch. He leaned back in his chair, his tone maddeningly calm. "You're 38. I mean, you know how it is. I'm thinking about having kids someday, and I just feel like it might be harder now. I want to live a little first, not rush into things." Amelia's stomach tightened. "We've been together for over a year," she said, her voice quieter than she wanted. "You knew my age from the beginning." "Of course I did," he said with that practiced smile, the one that always felt slightly too professional, too detached. "But I didn't think about it seriously back then. I thought maybe it wouldn't matter. But now, I don't see a future here." Her heart thudded painfully. "So what are you saying? That I've, expired?" Nathan shrugged. "It's not like that. You're beautiful, but let's be realistic. Men my age have more options. I just think it's better to be honest. You deserve someone who's ready for that stage of life. Someone older, maybe." The word older sliced deeper than she expected. She looked down at her reflection in the black surface of her coffee, her own face distorted by ripples, framed by the soft halo of cafe lights. She thought of the nights she'd stayed up waiting for him to text, the weekends she'd rearranged her schedule just to match his, the gentle hope she'd built brick by brick. And now, with one cruel sentence, he had demolished it like it was nothing. "I thought we were talking about the future," she whispered, barely audible over the sound of rain outside. "We are," Nathan said, standing up and pulling on his jacket. "Just not the same one." He tossed a few bills onto the table without looking at her. "You'll be fine, Amy. You always are." Then he was gone. The bell above the door jingled cheerfully as he left, mocking her, somehow. The empty chair across from her felt heavier than if he had stayed. Amelia sat still, her hands clasped together on the table, her breath uneven. The cafe moved on around her, laughter from a nearby couple, the hiss of milk frothing, someone ordering a latte. Nobody noticed that her heart had cracked open right there in the corner. She reached for her bag but couldn't bring herself to stand. She needed a minute, to gather the fragments of dignity left scattered across the table. When she finally rose, her legs felt like paper. The barista gave her a sympathetic look but said nothing, just wiped the counter slowly as if to offer her silence as comfort. Outside, the rain was relentless. She pulled her coat tighter and stepped into it, letting the chill bite her cheeks. The city blurred around her, neon lights reflected on wet pavement, cars passing with sprays of water, umbrellas like dark flowers opening and closing around her. Each person looked like they had somewhere to go, someone waiting for them. She felt invisible, drifting through a world that moved without her. Her phone buzzed. A message from her sister flashed on the screen. "Did you tell Nathan about your promotion? I bet he'll be proud." Amelia stared at the words until they blurred. She hadn't even gotten the chance. She'd been promoted last week, senior marketing lead. Years of hard work, late nights, and sacrifices had finally paid off. And yet none of it mattered to the man who had just labeled her, expired. She walked aimlessly, letting the rain soak her hair. Her heels clicked against the sidewalk until she reached a small park at the corner of the street. It was nearly empty, just a few benches glistening under the soft yellow light of a lamppost. She sat down and exhaled, her breath visible in the cool air. For the first time all night, she let herself feel it, the heartbreak, the humiliation, the exhaustion of always trying to be enough in a world that kept moving the goalpost. She'd spent her 20s chasing perfection, her 30s chasing stability, and now she was being told she'd run out of time. Tears welled up slowly, silently. She didn't sob. She didn't break down. She simply sat there, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. The park was still, and for a moment, the sound of raindrops on leaves became a strange kind of comfort. She thought about the girl she used to be, hopeful, full of dreams about love and family. That girl had believed that kindness and loyalty would be enough. But tonight had taught her something cruel and clear: the world often valued women by the clock, not by the soul. Her hands trembled as she wiped her face. The night air was cool against her skin, and somewhere deep inside, a quiet resolve began to grow. Maybe he couldn't see her worth. Maybe others wouldn't either. But that didn't mean it wasn't there. A taxi passed by, its headlights sweeping across the park, and for an instant she caught her reflection in the glass of a nearby storefront, a woman tired but strong, hurt but still standing. She took a long breath and stood up. The rain had softened into a mist now, the city lights glowing softer around her. As she walked home, her mind was strangely calm. The heartbreak hadn't disappeared, it still ached in her chest, but beneath it, something else stirred. It was the faint, flickering thought that maybe this wasn't an ending. Maybe this was just the necessary unraveling before she could begin again. She didn't know it yet, but somewhere, not far from this very street, a man who carried his own kind of loneliness would soon notice her, not for the years behind her, but for the light she still carried ahead. And when he did, the cruel words spoken in this cafe would fade like raindrops on glass, brief, gone, and meaningless compared to what would come next. The cafe had become her quiet refuge, a place where no one knew her history, where no one looked at her with pity or judgment. Amelia came here every Friday now, always sitting at the same table near the window. The same one where her heart had once broken open. Funny, how pain could become familiar enough to coexist with comfort. She sipped her cappuccino, laptop open, eyes scanning marketing reports that blurred together after a week of long hours. It was raining again outside, soft and steady, the kind that made the world feel muted and calm. Across the cafe, a little boy laughed. She glanced up. He was sitting with his father, a man she had noticed before. They often came around this time, sometimes after what looked like a school day, sometimes on weekends. The boy, maybe 6 years old, was always busy drawing. The father would sit quietly, reading something or sketching on paper too, his expression thoughtful but peaceful. Amelia liked watching them, not in a nosy way, just something about them soothed her. There was a gentleness between them that spoke of love built through quiet resilience. Today, the boy was coloring a green dinosaur on a napkin. The crayon slipped from his hand and rolled across the floor, landing under Amelia's table. She bent down to pick it up just as the boy hurried over, his shoes squeaking on the wooden floor. "Here you go," she said, smiling as she handed it to him. "Thanks." He grinned, his cheeks flushed pink from excitement. "It's a T-Rex, but my dad says it looks like a chicken." Amelia chuckled. "Well, your dad might be right. But I like it. It looks like a very strong chicken." The boy laughed so hard he snorted, which made her laugh too. His father looked up from his table, smiling at the sound. "Theo," he called gently, "are you harassing the nice lady again?" The boy turned to his father. "She said my dinosaur is a strong chicken." The man stood, walking over with an amused smile that softened his face. "That sounds like something he'd draw," he said, glancing at the napkin. "Sorry if he bothered you. He tends to make friends wherever he goes." "Not at all," Amelia said. "He's charming. I'm just jealous of his confidence." The man chuckled. "He gets that from his mom." His tone softened when he said it, just slightly, and Amelia noticed the subtle sadness in his eyes before he quickly masked it with another polite smile. "I'm Luke," he said, extending a hand. "And that's Theo." "Amelia," she replied, shaking his hand. His palm was warm, his handshake steady. "Nice to meet you both." That was how it began, small, ordinary, natural. Over the next few weeks, they started exchanging smiles, then words, then conversations. Sometimes Theo would bring his drawings over to show her, and Amelia would help him pick colors or draw little stars and trees around his dinosaurs. Other times Luke would sit with her for a few minutes while Theo napped in the corner, and they would talk about everything from books to work to how good the blueberry muffins were in this cafe. Luke was an architect, she learned. He had lost his wife 4 years ago in a car accident. He didn't speak of it often, but when he did, it wasn't with bitterness, it was with a kind of quiet reverence. He talked about raising Theo alone, about learning to cook pancakes badly, about how every morning felt like a small victory. Amelia, in turn, found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. She told him about her job, about the promotion she'd earned, about the man who had told her she was past her expiry date. When she said it aloud, she felt a familiar pang of humiliation, but Luke's expression was so steady, so unflinching, that she didn't feel small or foolish. He didn't interrupt. He didn't pity her. He just said, after a long moment, "That's ridiculous. People don't expire. We just get richer with time, like stories. Or good coffee." She laughed, softly. But something inside her eased that day. One Friday, the rain came down harder than usual, drumming against the glass as thunder rolled somewhere in the distance. Theo was building a tower of sugar packets at their shared table while Amelia and Luke sat across from each other, their hands occasionally brushing as they reached for napkins or coffee cups. It was comfortable now, effortless, easy in a way that surprised her. Luke watched Theo for a while, then looked back at her. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. "Of course," she said, curious. "When my wife died," he began slowly, "I thought that was it. That whatever love I had in me was gone. I thought I'd just exist for Theo, raise him, work, and that would be enough. But lately," he paused, running a hand through his hair, "lately, I've realized something. You don't move on from love, you carry it. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you find someone who helps you carry it better." Amelia's throat tightened. "Luke." He smiled faintly, eyes gentle. "You've been that for me, Amelia. You make me remember what warmth feels like. What peace feels like. And Theo, he adores you. I guess what I'm trying to say is," he reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. "You've become part of our little world. And I don't want that to change." The world outside the cafe blurred, the rain soft and steady, the smell of coffee and pastries wrapping around them like a quiet embrace. Amelia looked at his hand, then at his face, kind, a little tired, but sincere in a way that left no room for doubt. Her heart thudded in her chest, but this time, it wasn't fear or heartbreak. It was something deeper, something steady. "I don't want it to change either," she whispered. Theo looked up then, proudly holding his tower of sugar packets. "Look, Daddy. It's taller than my dinosaur." Luke laughed, eyes still on Amelia. "You see what I deal with." She smiled. "I think you're both doing just fine." Later that evening, when the cafe closed, they walked out together. Theo skipped ahead, splashing through puddles, his laughter echoing down the street. The air smelled like wet pavement and earth, and when Luke reached for her hand, she let him. They walked in silence for a while, listening to the rain. Then Luke said quietly, "You know, people say things about age, about time. But they forget, value doesn't fade. It deepens. You remind me of that." Amelia felt tears prick her eyes, but she didn't look away. For the first time in years, she wasn't trying to prove her worth to anyone. She wasn't waiting to be chosen. She was seen, fully, genuinely, beautifully. As they reached the corner where their paths split, Luke leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. Theo called out from ahead, impatient for them to catch up. Amelia smiled as she watched them walk away together, the man and the boy who had quietly rebuilt something inside her. The night was still wet with rain, but she no longer felt cold. She stood there for a moment, looking up at the sky. The same rain that once felt heavy now felt cleansing, like it was washing away the last remnants of the past. For the first time, she didn't see herself through the cruel lens of someone else's judgment. She was still here, still living, still worthy. And this time, she knew it.